What's happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, thanks to the team over at Threezero, we're going to be checking out their MDLX series Transformers G1 Megatron. Now, as we very quickly check out the packaging, we get a fantastic product shot of the actual Megatron figure itself. I mean, looking so badass. As we come around here to the back of the box, again, we've got some additional shots of Megatron, as well as the multiple different configurations that you can get out of that classic G1 fusion cannon. So, with that being said, let's get this guy out here, let's check him out and stack him up alongside some of the previous Autobot MDLX releases. So, here we have Threezero's Megatron. Now, first of all, before we go any further, no, this guy does not transform. There will be no transformation in this video, nor alt mode, because this is just a high-end action figure. And another thing I want to talk about is look no further, director Stephen Cable Jr. and Paramount Pictures, because you guys have right here the perfect live-action movie Megatron design. If this guy does look like this in the next Transformers film, you know, if he eventually makes an appearance, I would be so happy, because this guy does look badass. Now, for those of you wondering as to exactly what an MDLX release is, so as far as I can tell, it's basically where Threezero put their own original spin on some of these classic G1 characters. I mean, previously we had seen Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Cliffjumper, all of which look so awesome, and they also have plans to release a Starscream, which I believe is compatible with Optimus Prime and a Rodimus Prime, so definitely very excited to check them out. But here we have their Megatron, and personally, how I like to look at this is basically it's G1 Megatron had he appeared in live action, because the design does just seem to be way more realistic when in comparison to how these characters originally showed up back in the 80s. And I'm going to be honest, if this ever was a character that was to be brought back into live action, this is exactly the design that I'd like to see, because it is pretty much a perfect looking G1 Megatron. So as we check out the details, badass looking head sculpt, you know, it still does retain that kind of classic iconic bucket head design, but looks super awesome. And just in terms of the paintwork, you know, Threezero never failed to impress. He does look super awesome. And another thing which I find to be so impressive about these figures is the lack of any obvious joints. You know, this guy is super poseable, has something like 30 points of articulation, and if you were not familiar with Threezero figures, I think you'd probably mistake this for a statue, because really nothing stands out at all. You know, the joints are concealed wickedly. As we turn him around to the back, I'm so glad to see them still retain the kind of classic G1 Megatron silhouette, in the sense that he has the over-the-shoulder cannon and the massive fusion cannon, which itself does have armor slapped onto the front. So this definitely does look like it would decimate any Autobots that stand in its way, but the detail is just sick. I mean, especially here with the spinal column. I love it when they bring out B-movie Optimus Primes or even Rise of the Beast Primes, because he's well known for having a spinal column, so definitely glad to see it packed here into Megatron. And as we just check out the back of this guy, probably slightly more detailed than how he's looking from the front. Again, no obvious joints. You know, as you can see, the seams are pretty much completely hidden, so that's fantastic. And if I were to kind of speculate as to what this Megatron would transform into if he had a transformation, I'd be willing to bet maybe the original G1 Megatron gun, because these pieces definitely do look very similar to the handle of the original blaster from the show, so that's definitely a pretty nice touch. But check out the detail we have here for the inside of the leg. So yeah, overall just an incredibly awesome figure. But as you guys all know, the sculpting and the painting is only one piece which makes these Threezero figures so special, because the engineering that goes into the articulation is pretty much off the charts. So first of all, both the head and the neck have ball joints, so it does allow for a fantastic range. I mean, check that out, that is so awesome. And all of the joints on this guy are reinforced by die cast, so if I just move the neck up, you can see it kind of reflecting on the underside. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. In terms of the shoulders, these will move out to the sides to allow for a fantastic kind of kick out of the shoulder joint, so that's pretty awesome. They will also rotate the full 360 on some very sturdy ball joints, and as we spin him around here to the back, he also does have butterfly joints. And as I said previously, so awesome to see them so nicely concealed. I mean, this joint is fully painted as well as sculpted, so yeah, that's pretty cool. In terms of the bicep rotation, it will rotate the full 360. We get a super sick double joint packed into the elbow, which is badass, as well as a very nice ball joint here out of the wrist. My personal favorite piece of articulation of any Threezero figure would have to be the torso. So as we move the shoulders out to the side, the waist joint can rotate the full 360 despite kind of the complex skirt design, which is awesome, and the upper chest can rock rock side to side, which is pretty cool, but I love it when we crunch these forwards because check this out. It does reveal some additional spinal detail of Megatron, and that does just look so awesome. And to kind of give you guys a sense of just how deep that crunch is, pretty decent, especially considering Megatron is a slightly chunky character. All of the skirt pieces are on hinge joints, so you can move these here forwards and backwards. Even the ass flaps move, which is pretty cool, and he does have a pair of drop down hips, so we can kind of bring this section down, again completely reinforced by die cast, which is awesome. I'd say you'd get roughly about 90 degrees out of this before you potentially run the risk of popping this skirt piece off of the ball joint, so you know, just push it to the point where you guys personally feel comfortable. It will also kick back to that fold, which is awesome, as well as out to the sides. We do get a very nice thigh rotation, and technically there is two ways in how you can articulate the knee joints. So you can articulate them this way, which in itself I think is a great range. I mean, that is so awesome. I mean, basically that entire joint was hidden inside the thigh, so fantastic engineering. Or what you can do is bend this joint here first of all, so let's see how that works out, and get an even deeper range, which I think is so cool. And then in terms of the feet, basically this back foot guard can move left to right, and the actual foot itself can rock side to side, move forwards and backwards, as well as rotate just a little bit. And we also do get a tiny bit of toe pivot. So overall, in terms of articulation, in terms of painting and sculpting and the design of this Megatron, absolutely badass. He does look super awesome. Now, as we check out a few accessories for Megatron, first of all, you guys are already looking at two of them. So we get the massive fusion cannon, as well as the over-the-shoulder gun. There are quite a few configurations on how you can display both of these accessories on this Megatron. So, for example, if you wanted to, you could completely remove the fusion cannon, which personally I wouldn't recommend to do so, because what is a G1 Megatron without his classic fusion cannon? So definitely make sure that you slap that on there. You can also pop off the front of the fusion cannon and pack the over-the-shoulder cannon on to create a slightly more slender design for the gun, which personally isn't my preferred look. Or alternatively, you can pack the over-the-shoulder cannon on top of the fusion cannon to kind of create this Bayverse lockdown style weapon, which does just look nuts. And we also get a pair of fisted hands, and in addition to these, we get a pair of what I can only call skull crushing hands, because I can just imagine Megatron picking up an Autobot, much like he did in the War for Cybertron video game, and just crushing its skull. So yeah, that's pretty badass. And then finally, we get a Megatron command hand, as well as kind of a gripping hand. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't include any handheld accessories. Would have been even more awesome had they packaged in maybe a sword, much like we saw from the War for Cybertron Netflix series. But you know, if you have a few extra accessories laying around, I'm pretty sure that you can smack them in there and Megatron would be good to go. So yeah, definitely a great variety of accessories, and definitely comes with the essentials, such as that massive fusion cannon, which does just look so wickedly awesome. Now, as we check out a few comparisons, here we have Threezero's MDLX Megatron alongside their previous release, that being Optimus Prime. And yeah, they both do complement each other very nicely. In terms of which redesign I personally prefer, gotta give it to the Megatron. You know, the Optimus Prime was cool, but I do just think the Megatron has been adapted so much nicer, especially in terms of the hyper-realistic kind of surface detail. Again, the perfect, the ultimate live-action movie rendition of Megatron just sitting here. This is perfect, Paramount. If you're gonna bring him back looking like this. Next up, here we have the MDLX Bumblebee, which also I thought was an incredibly cool redesign. So I wouldn't even mind actually seeing this guy depicted in live action, because he looks pretty badass as well. But whilst we're talking about live action, here we have the Rise of the Beast Studio Series Optimus Prime, and not only do these two figures pair incredibly nicely and also scale really well with each other, but they do look awesome next to each other. You know, it's been far too long since Megatron made an appearance in live action. It's about damn time that he had a grand return to truly go up against his arch nemesis, Optimus Prime. And to follow on from Studio Series Optimus, here we have the Rise of the Beast Deluxe Class Bumblebee. And then finally, just to show you guys the difference between MDLX and DLX, here we have him stacked up alongside Threezero's Transformers The Last Knight, Optimus Prime. And so, wrapping up on this review for the Threezero MDLX Megatron. Overall, I'm incredibly impressed by this figure. I mean, in terms of the design, to see Threezero kind of put their own original spin on a G1 Megatron is just awesome, and I think it's been done so nicely. I mean, as I said throughout this video, this to me really does remind me of a live-action movie rendition of a G1 Megatron, and if he ever did appear in live action, this is exactly the design that I would hope to see, because it is just so faithful, so iconic to that original design, yet definitely does have the gritty realism that you'd expect from the live action films. Amazing sculpting, amazing paintwork. You know, the engineering that is packed into these figures is incredibly surprising. I mean, as you guys saw, there are really no obvious joints. I mean, this guy is super articulated, and if you just have him standing on a shelf, you really can't point out where the joints are. So impeccable engineering, great articulation, pretty decent accessories. I mean, it would have been awesome had he included a flail or some kind of sword weapon like we saw from G1 or the Netflix series, but the fusion cannon and the alternate hands are definitely more than enough. And if you've picked up some of the past MDLX figures, then I definitely think you're going to be very happy with this one, because at least in my opinion, this is the best one which they've so far released. So again, massive thank you to Threezero for sending this here my way for a video review. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comment section below, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.